Previously on Break the Cycles, I made it down Baja California and finally got onto the ferry to cross over into mainland Mexico. The ferry took about 6 to 7 hours to go from La Paz to Topolobampo. We left La Paz around 2 3 p.m. and arrived closer to 10 p.m. Because the ferry didn't run every day, all the overlanding motorcyclists within the time period are on the same ferry. This means that you basically get to meet everyone making the same trip or similar trip on the boat. There were a good 15 of us, all motorcyclists. When we exited Topolobampo, it was already very late at night. I had thought going into the port in La Paz was confusing, but let me tell you, exiting the ferry at night at a different port that you've never been to was so much worse. Nobody knows where they're going. The roads are not well lit. There's buildings everywhere. You have no idea what's going on. It was the blind leading the blind. Because it was late at night, we agreed to take a motel right outside the ferry port. It is also very evident that the area is not very well developed and it looks very sketchy in terms of safety. So the whole group got a room in a hotel, hostel kind of place just outside of the port. Next day, we all decided that we might as well ride together since we're all going the same direction and leaving from the same place. So it makes sense. Riding a large group is always challenging. You have people with all kinds of different types of bikes, with different displacement, different setup. On top of that, you have different experiences, different level of safety consideration, and different level of maintenance on their vehicle. Most people did not even have an intercom at the time, so it's very difficult if someone needed to make an emergency stop or they fell behind. No one would know. So on top of that, when we ran through the toll, it was double tricky because the guy at the front originally said he would pay for everyone and we can settle it afterwards, which was better because then you have one transaction and everybody just goes through, right? But when we got there, we all ended up paying for our own toll for some reason, and that took forever. So everybody got through, they had to move to the side to wait for everybody else to come out. I mean, it was a whole transaction. It was ridiculous. By the time I got to the hotel hostel at the end of the day in Matzalan that everybody wanted to go to, I really had enough riding with the group. There were multiple times where we stopped for rest and people were in the front. They got too excited. They're like, okay, let's go. And then they took off and other people weren't ready. And we were like, oh, shoot, they already took off. Let us go get ready and get on the bike and go. But to give you a bit of context, if you had to get ready for 3 to 5 minutes and got to put your earplugs in, helmet on, etc., and then get going, if someone took off already before you did all that and they're 3 to 5 minutes down the road and you're traveling at 60 miles an hour, that means they're 3 to 5 miles down the road already. And it was very frustrating because they could have been gone and we have to rush through traffic just to catch up to them. So it was a disaster. So by the time we got to the hotel, they also ran out of room because there was just way too many of us. I mean, we were 15 strong and then we're trying to book all the rooms. And when we got there, they're like, oh, well, somebody has to share a room because we're one short. And I was like, no, I'm out. I'm not doing this. So I ended up looking for a coach and house surfer and met up with Carmen and her friends. So after dinner, Carmen took me to an enclosed community apartment complex. She handed me the key and told me I had the whole place to myself. Turns out her parents own a few apartments in town. We sat and chatted in their living room for a while before she took off. The next day, Carmen came and drove me around town to show me some local sites. We did some hiking and had some meals together, and I went back to the apartment. The apartment had fantastic AC, super comfortable beds. I honestly could not have had a better accommodation. The next day, I left Matzalan and headed towards Guadalajara. I took the highway because there was some warning at the time of cartel activities in the local area, in the middle of Mexico, in the local areas. So I decided to pay for the toll road. And the toll road was actually very well paved and super well maintained. It felt very safe. There's tons of places to pull off that's like far enough off the road while the trucks are passing by. You don't feel like you're just like on the road. And I hit a lot of rain going towards Guadalajara, but you can see it from like forever like out there. You can see the rain clouds coming. So I was able to like get underneath these bridges crossings before the rain hits me, and then just like wait it out under the bridge. So it wasn't that bad.
I stopped down here before it even started raining, and it just kept raining harder. I do see clear clouds in the where the rain's going, so maybe another 15, 20 minutes, it'll be all right. So I'm literally 30 miles away from Guadalajara, but it is now pouring rain like nobody's business.
I eventually made it to Guadalajara, but I got there when it was already completely dark. I rode in. It took much longer than I thought it was going to take, and by the time I got to my host's house, it was like in this like really sketchy looking like road, like in this not well lit community, and it just looks kind of dirty. But I made it. One of the girlfriends of the host was super enthusiastic, and when we were talking at night, she was like, "Yeah, I'll take you around the next day." But something was kind of off with her. So, but I mean, I'm in a different country. Somebody wants to show me around. I'm not gonna say no. I waited for her until like 11 a.m. and then she flaked on me. I mean, it's not a terrible surprise, but she totally flaked on me. But I had to go to Mexico City, and now I'm leaving, and it's going to be late for me to depart, which means I will probably get there in the dark again. I took mostly the interstate because I was running late and I was hoping to make better time on the interstate. And here we see a family of too many riding on a bike, and it looked super unsafe. And I was in a culture shock. But later, I realized the errors of my way because that bike can fit at least two more family members on there. But then soon it was getting late, and I realized I still like have like an hour to go before I even get into Mexico City, much less get into my friend's place. And looking back, while I edit these videos, I really make a lot of dumb decisions. Really dumb. The whole idea was to not ride at night because everybody tells you don't ride at night because it's dangerous, you don't know the areas, and there's a lot of sketchy places. And, well, not only have I ridden at night, and if you count the days I've ridden at night, it's almost like half the days that I'm traveling on the bike, I ended up riding at night. Never said I was smart. So this ride proved to be one of the dumbest day yet for me. When I got into Mexico City border, it was already nighttime. Even in the city streets, the street lights was terrible. It was terribly lit, and you could see it is pouring rain. This was super dangerous. Coming into the city, tons of cars merging, trucks everywhere. It was super wet, rainy. I was freezing cold and exhausted. The rain's hitting my helmet. I can barely see. I mean, the last 30 minutes riding in the city, getting to my friend's place in Mexico City, wow, I was so nervous. And it was a very, very miserable experience. Luckily, I made it to my friend and co-worker's place, Dave, in Mexico City. I took an easy day the next day and did the service on my bike in his apartment garage. The bike needed a lot of service, carb cleaning, oil change, just a complete fresh tune up. And I had to clean the air filter from all the dirt riding that I'd done in Baja, etc. At night, Dave took me to see a Lucha Libre show on my request because I'm there, so of course I want to see a Lucha Libre show. The following day, I headed north on my own to Teotihuacan. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but it's the Pyramid of the Sun. You might be wondering how I got such a fantastic shot of the pyramids since it's supposed to be illegal to fly drone there. Well, I flew it illegally because I didn't know it was illegal. I actually walked up these steps and then start flying. And as soon as they went up, someone ran up to tell me, "Hey, you can't do that. It's not okay. You can't fly drones there." But the officer was super cool about it. He didn't try to take my drone or erase my footage. So I guess I got away with it. After I returned to the house, I went out with Dave for dinner one last time, and then the next morning I headed south towards Oaxaca. But getting out of Mexico City was a nightmare of traffic and congestion. It took forever just to get out of the city limits. It took nearly 90 minutes just to leave the city limits before I got on a regular road. You might think traveling on the highway in Mexico is pretty boring, but the scenery was actually quite impressive. The road snakes in and out of the mountains, so you have fantastic views all around. And this was actually one of my favorite shots, and it's like straight on the highway. There was actually a construction zone like off the highway, and I rode up on it and took a break on it, and you can see like the road snaking through the mountainside. It was just beautiful. But I eventually made it to Oaxaca, and I planned my time better this time, and I got there when the sun is still up. And I found my couch surfing host. My host is actually an English teacher at a private English school. I was able to meet all the students, interact with them. It was kind of cool. And the following day, I stayed in Oaxaca and walked around town. I found this all you can eat buffet for like $2. I could not believe my eyes when I saw the amount of food that's available on the buffet. I mean, like you had everything: salad, meats, soup, anything you can imagine, super fresh. And like it was so good for $2. Couldn't fathom how cheap and how good the food was. At night, I met up with Wynnum. So this is actually a pretty cool story. When I decided to sell my other DR650, the black one, because I wanted to start with a fresh bike and go a different route on the build out with a different tank, etc., Wynnum was the guy that bought my bike. He also had the plan to go down to Ushuaia, but without going all the way up to Alaska first. So we actually kept in touch and timed it so he would meet me in Oaxaca. And Wynnum came and stayed with my host for the night, so we ended up going out for some Mexican food with the host. It was fantastic. The following day, me and Wynnum headed further south into Mexico. There isn't a straight shot highway going south like northern Mexico to Mexico City. There are some larger roads, but they're often cut through small towns and countrysides. There was a few good pull-offs for the photos, and we got on our way, and we ultimately got to Juchitán de Zaragoza. Me and Wynnum met up with someone I've been following for a very long time on Instagram, and also one of the inspirations for my trip. So we met Aaron, who's on a Tiger 800 XC, and he has ridden all over the world. He just happened to be going north while we were coming south. We met up in the same town so we can trade stories and take our obligatory photo shoot. Next day, we rode to Tuxtla Gutierrez, and me and Wynnum took different hosts and agreed to meet up a few days later as I needed to do some basic service on my bike. Osme took me in, and this was my first introduction to half-built houses. Now, the shower area here, there's no walls. It's straight concrete, no walls. And you can see the bathroom, there's no partition, so when you take a shower, I mean, the water just gets everywhere. Your bed is like, maybe like a few feet away. So you have to be careful because the water can get literally everywhere. So this was a bit of a culture shock. The next day, I serviced my bike and went to dinner with my host and prepared to leave the following day. The next day, me and Wynnum took off towards Chiapas. We wanted to take a more adventurous route, road less travel, somewhere in the back of the wood that isn't very touristy. We wanted to cross over at a very remote crossing up north rather than the main border crossing in Tapachula. So we visited some kind of ruin. Well, we wanted to visit some kind of ruin that isn't like, some tourist trap, because that would just be really lame. And we found this ruin deep inside of Mexico in the little bend and next to the Guatemala border called Bonaparte. So we headed that way. We got gas at San Cristobal and met a local guy at the gas station. And he was super nice, spoke great English, and he told us we would not be able to continue down Route 190 and we shouldn't go that way because there are violent locals that have taken over the road. Now, having heard this, of course, me and Wyndham were very concerned. So we ended up consulting a few other people, and some of them said that, you just have to pay a toll, you can go through, it's not a big deal. But since we didn't have an alternative route plan, we decided to believe the second guy. And sure enough, shortly after we took off from San Cristobal going down 190, there was a traffic backup. But it moved pretty quickly, and we only delayed us for like 15 minutes. We got in the front, and the locals just demanded payment to cross. It was a few dollars per person. They were actually really friendly. They just acted like a toll operator. They just made their own tolls. The scene do look unhinged, though. You're pulling up to this place. All the locals are out, dressing in their color, looking like gang members with sticks and flags in their hand. But once you get over the theatric, it really wasn't that chaotic. We paid our toll and we kept riding. And we found the closest town to the ruin. It's called Benemerito de las Americas. It was a very, very small town. We took a hostel, and I remember sleeping in my sleeping bag and try to cover my face with like other stuff just because it was very dirty and there was bugs everywhere and the AC didn't work. This is not for everyone. Next time, we explore the Mexican ruin of Bonaparte and the nightmare at Guatemala border crossing in El Cibo.